Hello and welcome to New Europe Studios, where you can watch us make the news. I'm Sean Dunn, and with me today is Shahzad Akbar. He is a human rights attorney that has been working on the issue of drones. Thank you for being with us today, Shahzad.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to begin today by asking you about how you first got involved in the issue of drones in Pakistan.
Well, back in 2010, I was based in Islamabad, and that's when I was contacted by a civilian victim of drone strike. Just to remind you, in 2010, there were no known civilian victims of drone strikes in Pakistan, which was the most concentrated drone program of CIA. At that time, I was also writing an academic paper on issue of drones and various legal questions involved. And I also wanted to interview a drone victim. And this particular drone victim, who had lost his son and brother, both of whom were government employees, he wanted to start a legal action or file a case against Pakistani government and the American government for the drone strike that killed his family members. So this is how I first came across, and then after discussion we decided to take his case, and that became the first litigation on behalf of a civilian drone victim back in 2010, which was primarily bringing criminal charges against the CIA officials in Pakistan and also suing Pakistani government for their omission in protecting right to life of their citizens.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the experiences that your client, Karim Khan, has gone through as a result of this case?
Karim Khan, I would like to say, first of all, has been very instrumental in bringing the stories of drone victims, not just his own, but hundreds of other people like him. He comes from the area which is completely blocked for the outsiders. It's very difficult for people living in Waziristan to get out and reach to the independent media and report what's happening with them, or to go to courts. So Karim Khan, who had lost his son and brother in 2010, he contacted me, and then he became the first client. And then because of his litigation, within a couple of weeks, I was contacted by 16 more drone victim families. And it was because of this first step taken by Karim that now we are representing over 150 families, which include more than 400 victims of drone strikes that have been killed in drones in Waziristan. So Karim Khan kept on working. He also works with other drone victims as well. He visits villages, he brings people to Islamabad, bring them to court. Actually, he is giving an alternate to victims of drone strikes who are living without any legal redressal, because a wrong is being done to them, a wrong has been done to them, but there's no legal redressal. So Karim Khan has been very instrumental and the face of the campaign in Waziristan. Recently in 2014, he was scheduled to visit European countries including Germany, Amsterdam, Holland and UK, to speak with the parliamentarians who are interested in the issues of drones and the impact on civilian population. And just 3 weeks before his trip to Europe, he was picked up in the middle of the night from his house where he was living with his family, taken to an undisclosed location, blindfolded, handcuffed, tortured very badly for almost 2 weeks. And when he went missing, because he was a known person, he was a known figure, there was a huge uproar from the civil society in Pakistan. The parliamentarians who had invited him to come and speak with them, they actually wrote to the Prime Minister of Pakistan showing their concerns for his being missing from his home and abducted in a similar manner. We went into High Court in Pakistan and filed a habeas corpus petition where basically we blamed the government for his abduction. And it was through all this concerted effort that he was released after 2 weeks. And he was completely shattered, but he still continued with his work. He came to Europe, he spoke with the various parliaments, their committees, informed them the impact of drones on civilians. And this was the latest strategy that has happened to him. He's still struggling with some of the PTSD issues that are as a result of his captivity and torture. But he's very much strong on what he stands for, His cases are still pending against Pakistani government and the CIA. And as he is the face of campaign in Waziristan, it was very important that he gets back, is freed, and still continues with his campaign against drones. So I'm very glad that he's back and he's still working on the issue. And I think a lot of credit for that goes to media and parliamentarians in Pakistan and Europe, because they really put pressure on this issue, and that's how it was resolved.
You mentioned the CIA that has been involved in this. There's recent developments now that probably should come as no surprise, that the American Air Force has been complicit in these targeted killings. What sort of legal issues does that raise?
Actually, the fact of pilots, Air Force pilots being used for drone flights has been known before as well, but there was no confirmation. Now a confirmation has come out. In terms of legal issues and in terms of litigation in Pakistan, that doesn't really change much, because still the control and command is in CIA's hand. It's the CIA's covert operation which is being conducted under the executive order of the president, so it's direct responsibility of the president or all those who are part of this. Now, for example, what we are doing in our litigation is we are taking a lead from what the US academics are saying, because US academics like Gary Solis are declaring the use of drones in Pakistan an act of homicide, an act of murder, a criminal act. So what we do is, like, if identity of any person who is involved in the direct operation is become known, we file a criminal case against that person, like we filed against CIA station chief. Following our first litigation in 2010, within 3 days CIA withdrew the station chief from Islamabad because they were quite fearful, and they had the knowledge of the wrongdoing which the agency was doing, because you are in another country, there's no declared war, you're not only violating the sovereignty of that country, but you're actually committing the act of murder. So the vulnerability is very much there, and that has also been confirmed by the former CIA legal counsel, John Arrizzo, who is also defendant in one of our litigation, who publicly admitted that he knows that the orders that he's been giving for killing in the CIA drone programs, it's pretty much an act of murder. So I think there is that realization already there. So if now, for example, US Air Force pilots are working on, or they are the ones who are operating drone flights, then we have to see the command and control system, who actually is, if they're still under the Air Force command, or if they have been given to the CIA and the CIA has the control and command. So in that sense, the liability would rely more on finding out what's really going on. But this is what we're discussing is the real problem with drones, because the drone program, especially in Pakistan and Yemen, I would say, which is primarily CIA's operation, is filled with secrets, lack of accountability and transparency. There's no declaration who is being killed and what for. A huge number of population has been killed in Pakistan, more than 3,000 people killed, hardly any names known. If you look at the number of high value targets, which is the so-called logic and reason for drone strikes in Pakistan, right, their identity or that number is so little. It looks like when we're talking about Geneva Convention and protocols, we think about civilian casualty as the collateral damage. So we're killing bad guys and maybe some civilians are being killed. But this is a situation where dozens and hundreds of civilians are killed, and maybe in that process one militant is also killed. And even that is not sure, because there is no transparency of the program. It's a program which is being carried out in the dark. It's a program which has problems because there are strikes as signature strikes, where people's pattern and behavior and their whereabouts are studied and they're declared militant or not. So you don't really have any intelligence saying that this person has committed this particular offense, or this person is going to commit this particular offense against United States. But just because this person looks in a particular way, he wears particular clothes, he might have a particular identity, therefore he is liable to be killed. So that is the problematic area with CIA strikes inside Pakistan, which I think everyone has been objecting to, including the UN Special Rapporteurs, the Human Rights Commissioner, and all other, including Pakistani government as well.
Right. And would you say that drones have really destabilized certain regions of Pakistan to a great extent, that it's really terrorizing the people?
Well, certainly it has terrorized that whole community, because you are talking about a population of 500,000 in North Waziristan, 500,000 in South Waziristan. So about 1 million people living under constant threat of drones. Look at what the New York University and Stanford University report says, that everyone living in these areas is actually living under drones and is suffering this continuous threat. It has not only destabilized the region, it has also been extremely counterproductive, because these are the people who are already living in archaic systems. They're living under old laws which care nothing for human rights, their fundamental rights, and all of a sudden you're breaching even that framework, and you're killing people and you're not giving them any redressal. So if a wrong has been done to you, an unjust act has been done to you, human nature is you seek justice. If you don't get justice, if you don't have a forum for justice, you seek revenge. And that is the counterproductive part of the drones. There is no legal redressal available for the victims of drone strikes and civilian victims of drone strikes. So just imagine a youth who has lost his father, or just imagine a father who's lost his child in a drone strike.
Right.
He cannot go to a court because there is no court in Waziristan. He might not even have money to go to court because he cannot reach to Islamabad or cities where the courts are. And even if he does reach, US is not listening. They're not paying any attention to any of the litigation that have been brought. So this person might as well buy into the militants' ideology of revenge. So that is the dangerous part, because what we are seeing in Pakistan is that drones which have been carried out since 2004 in Pakistan have not really resolved any issue. The militancy is on rise, the violence is on rise, and with growing violence under drones, there's a violence from militants which also grows. So it's not really resolving anything, it's actually increasing the violence in the region, therefore destabilizing it.
Have you experienced any sort of harassment in this process, or
Well, I think
generally are they just not listening?
Well, I think not listening is harassment enough for me. But yes, we have had problems from, for example, when we started this work in 2010, our office was ransacked a couple of times. Once it was shot at, someone tried to break in. I'm not allowed to go to US. My visas have been denied. They don't really US doesn't really let me in US. I've been invited by universities, different think tanks, various conferences. I'm never given a visa. So that kind of resentment is shown there, but I'm nothing of sort that what happened to Karim Khan has happened to me so far, thankfully.
Going forward, what would you like to see change?
I think what really needs to be done, and I really appreciate European initiative and interest in drones and opening up in Europe for public debate. Because why I am here, why other people talking on drones are here in Europe, is because of this opening up in Europe for a public debate on drones, because drones have been used outside the war zones as well. They have been used for the last 7 to 10 years in Pakistan and in Yemen. You have to study what it has actually done on ground. You have to see the impact. The argument of precision is something which is being sold by the arms industry, which is selling the weapon. But before the political leadership of the developed countries, especially Europe as well, before they buy into drones, they really need to see what is the area where this weapon has been used and how this weapon can be used, and what are some of the issues involved with it. Because the problem I have experienced in my work on drones in Pakistan is that the issue and the decision of killing someone in another country becomes very easy and cheap. So if you are an American president and you want to kill someone in Afghanistan or Pakistan or Iran, you don't have any political cost because you're not sending your troops on ground. It's an easy decision. And if there is complete blanket of secrecy, possibility is that wrongdoing might not ever come out. But that actually is not really solving the problem. That actually leads into further disarray. So I think the important thing to do in moving forward is that we need to work on solution that drones are not used outside the war zones. They are not used in other countries. The international laws and norms have to be respected, and the precedential value which the US use of drones cross-border have set has to be kept, because drones have been used in regions in Middle East and in subcontinent which are volatile regions where there are many crazy governments and many old issues to settle, old scores to settle. So I think the world would be a very bad place if other countries start following US example. I think we need to work on that no one follows US example, and that we need to put some kind of a check that it's never used in this way again.
Right. Well, thank you, Shahzad Akbar, for that great interview. I'm Sean Dunn with New Europe Studios on Place Jourdan in Brussels, where you can come see us make the news.